Let's take a journey back to 1992. The late writer Anilchandra Thakur wrote a poem then that was part observation, part warning. It's this incredibly powerful voice from a specific moment in time, but its honesty is so raw that it still hits hard today. We're going to break it down and really listen to what it has to say. Right from the jump, the poem grabs you. It starts, "Whenever I think about the world so far, sadness shrouds, burns like hot red bar." He doesn't ease you in at all. It's an immediately heavy, reflective tone. And notice, this isn't just, feeling down. It's a pain that's active, it's searing, it burns. So let's explore this poetic time capsule. You really get this feeling of an emotional snapshot from over 3 decades ago. It's a direct line into how he saw his world. And what's wild is that Thakur's voice, it doesn't feel old. It feels like he could be speaking right to us right now. To really get this poem, you have to see it as more than just words. Tagore wasn't just writing poetry here. He was making a diagnosis, a really stark one. He was looking at the world around him and seeing something deeply, fundamentally wrong. So what was his diagnosis?
Okay, so the first big theme, kind of the core of his whole argument, is this idea of a world that's just lost its moral compass. He sees a society that's totally adrift, with none of the ethical anchors that are supposed to hold things together.
Moral is vanished and violence aroused. I mean, how direct is that? He draws a straight line between the two. He's not saying it's a coincidence. In his view, when a society's moral code disappears, that's what opens the door for violence to rush in. One feeds the other.
And here are the specific symptoms he lays out. You've got the vanished morals, which leads to violence. Then there's this general, widespread restlessness. And of course, the corrupting influence of money. For him, it's a pretty clear chain reaction, a blueprint for societal decay. But this decay doesn't just happen out of nowhere, right? Thakur then zooms in on where he thinks it starts, the structures of power. He paints this really grim picture of a corrupt, totally self-serving system where the people at the top have no connection to what's happening on the ground. What an image! The king is sitting and muscles men around, doing this and that for the king is bound. You can just see it, can't you? A ruler who's completely passive. He's just sitting while his power is enforced by others. Guys who are bound to do whatever he wants, no questions asked. This sets up such a clear power dynamic. On one side, you've got the powerful guy, the king, just sitting there, detached, thinking about himself. And on the other, you have the tools of his power, the enforcers who are just doing the work, following orders. It's a whole system built on pure dominance, not on leadership.
But these big ideas about power and morals, they have real-world consequences. And this is where the poem just gets heartbreaking, because Thakur brings it all the way down to the personal, human suffering that this broken system causes.
And this is the part of the poem that just stops you cold. Sisters are wrapped and brothers losing lives, mothers looking out and sons kissing wives. See, we're not talking about kings and politics anymore. This is about families being ripped apart. It's about grief and loss and those final goodbyes happening in regular homes because of all the chaos outside.
And to describe this feeling, the poet uses this line that's just so haunting. He says, "Destructions and distortions dance everywhere." It's not just that bad things are happening. It's that word, dance. That's what's so chilling. It makes it sound like there's this chaotic, nightmarish energy that's completely taken over everything.
He even repeats the line in the poem. And that repetition, it works like a haunting echo. It really drives home the feeling that this chaos is everywhere. You can't get away from it. It's like a constant, looping nightmare that society is trapped in. So after diagnosing the sickness and showing us the human cost, the poem's tone shifts one last time. It goes from observing and mourning to this direct, almost desperate plea to a higher power, just looking for some kind of answer. He starts with this really introspective question, one that flips the mirror away from society and points it right back at us. Why are we upset of ourselves? He's suggesting the problem isn't just out there, it's in here, something inside us. And then he follows up with an even more pointed question that really gets to the core of it all. Why are we thinking only of power and self? This is it. This is the root cause he was talking about earlier. The vanished morals, the greed of the king. It all boils down to this one basic human flaw. And then we get the climax of the poem. It's just this raw, powerful plea. Oh, Almighty God, if you really exist, try to rush and come to verses. Now this is so fascinating. He's not asking for a miracle. He's not asking for divine intervention in the usual sense. He's asking God to come to verses, to show up in poetry, in truth, in clarity. He's looking for salvation through understanding. So we're left with this plea from 1992, from a voice that's now silent. And as we sit with these words today, the real final question isn't in the poem. It's the one we have to ask ourselves. After more than 30 years, what's changed and what hasn't? If someone were to write this plea today, what would it say?